I'm Steph Garcia Cichosz with D1 Ticker, and I am so excited to be joined by an all-star cast of characters today. We have Kevin Collignon, founder and CEO of Retain Technologies, Nicole Alderson, Associate AD for Student-Athlete Development and SWA at Grand Canyon, and Dr. Joe Luckey, Executive Senior Associate AD for Student-Athlete Support Services at Cincinnati. We're here to talk today about the launch of Omnia, a comprehensive solution for student-athlete development. Nicole, Kevin, Joe, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, let's start with you, Kevin. Tell me the story of Retain. What was the inspiration behind this company?
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. So I was a former student athlete at the University of Northern Colorado, and at the time, really, this was back in 2008. I saw a need for our school to really use some technology for some of the activities, and so where we started is really for study hall. At the time, we had to clock in and out of study hall, but the way we did that was signing in on a piece of paper. And so I had a background in software engineering, and so that's really where Retain got started. We developed for the school I was at a simple way to just swipe in and swipe out of study hall and make it as easy as possible to add up our hours so everyone knew exactly how much time we've completed. That was our founding, and at the time, as a student athlete, I did not have really the perspective of all of the support and systems behind student athletes to make them successful. And so a few years after I graduated, we had a few early partners typically using study hall. And then we had some early customers come out and just say, hey, can we add some more things to your software? And so we then added tutoring, scheduling, and some other components in there. And then, long story short, today we really just been building out solutions for athletic programs to really make it as easy as possible to not only track and monitor, but to make their students as successful as they can be.
Well, what would you say the primary need is that Retain seeks to fill for an athletic department, besides just replacing the paper sign-in for study hall?
Sure. Yeah, so just like many people, our ultimate goal is to make the student athletes experience as good as it can be at the university. I would say where we focus the majority of our efforts is really on the staff and giving them tools via software to make their day-to-day jobs as streamlined as possible. We really believe that if we can streamline their work, that allows them to focus more time on what they love doing, and that's working with the student athletes. So we kind of juggle both of those sides, but really a lot of it focuses around the staff and software that they use day in and day out.
Tell me about the idea for Omnia. Were there any specific conversations that you were having with existing partners that led to the development of this platform?
Yeah, so I would say, during the pandemic, as everything had to switch to all virtual formats, a lot of professionals, we think, started to reevaluate their programming and especially look at what the future of that would look like. And we saw a growing need for departments to really be able to quantify all of their work and the programming that they put on within the department. And time again, we really heard a need for a unified data strategy and a tracking system kind of always was on the top of the list of many of our partners that we had spoken to. So really, we set out to develop a wraparound solution to the work that's being done within student-athlete development. We wanted something that wasn't done in a silo, but is able to touch other parts of the department and even other parts of campus as well, which many universities and athletic programs have a lot of collaboration with. And really, regardless of your department size, whether you're a very large department or a small department, we really wanted to develop something that works within your existing system and really helps all student athletes and to bridge that gap between college and life after sport.
Give me the rundown of the key offerings that Omnia will provide for athletic departments.
Sure. So really, first thing is we wanted to really build the ultimate way to track and display all of the students' accomplishments and milestones. So it's a web platform that we developed that really starts with what we call focus areas. So these are going to be those key pillars or categories that typically the department, structures all of their programming around. And this could be things like obviously personal development, professional development, or community engagement. And then we have a series of modules that all kind of relate back to those core areas. The first one being pathways. So this really allows departments to set long-term goals and milestones for their student athletes. And it has an easy roadmap view to easily track the progression of those activities with the student. And the great thing about that is the staff, but also the student have visibility into that. So the students we found have a lot more pride and ownership in knowing everything they've completed and what they also have as opportunities within the program. In addition to the pathways, we have an entire event module, which really allows schools to easily collect attendance and turnout to any of the mandatory or optional events that they put on, whether it's within the department or offsite, at a different location. And then typically around just all those workflows, many programs we found, have to collect data, whether it's feedback or surveys or sign-up information. And so we have kind of a surveys module kind of embedded in there that really just helps streamline and collect all of the activity. And lastly, we're really focusing on really centralizing all of the awards and accomplishments that student athletes achieve. So whether it's something they get from the university, academic awards or honors, conference awards, or even just awards they receive within their athletic department, centralizing all of that in one place, having the student athletes have access to that. And again, going back to really just them having ownership of that information is really what we're focused on initially.
Well, let's turn to the Bearcats. Dr. Joe Luckey, what was your first reaction when Retain presented Omnia to you? What were some specific challenges that you were looking to solve?
Thank you. Well, Kevin's been a great partner with the Retain product, and we knew that had streamlined our study hall program, our tutoring program. And so when Kevin presented Omnia, at the same time, we had just created a Student-Athlete Development Academy. And as we were setting up our pillars for the academy, one of the key components was a streamlined system, but also, as Kevin noted, the platform that would be shared by the student athletes and by our academy staff. That was a critical piece that we wanted the student athlete engagement in the process. We wanted them to be able to view the different events that they participate in. We also wanted them to see, like if we were entering that they attended X event, that was being captured at the same time. They have multiple community engagement events that they're involved in, and the ability for them to input that into the system and see essentially that it would be a dashboard that we should be shared by our academy staff and then the student athlete. That was really attractive to us.
It's an empowerment tool, and that is so important when it comes to student athlete development. Well, let's dive into a few of the main areas that Cincinnati is using the Omnia platform for. That we have development programming and pathway tracking, student to alumni profiles, event programming, and then student portfolios. Can you speak to a few of those features and how Cincinnati is utilizing them?
The basic function would be is all the programming that would be our student athletes would be participating during the year would be logged in the pathways development programming. So we would like it on a monthly basis where we could send out a text or an email to our student athletes and say, go into Omnia, check your dashboard. Everything that you've participated in, is it in there? Is it accurate? Is it logging everything that you have done up to that point? We have a goal for our student athletes, and we have 4 pillars that we look at: personal development, leadership, career exploration, and community engagement. And so we have activities built within our curriculum in each of those 4 areas. Can each student athlete see where their progress is? That's an important piece. The next is then building their profile. Kevin talked about it, logging their awards, logging all the things. Essentially, Omnia should allow them to build their resume And as they're putting together the pretty document of the resume, they're going to LinkedIn, they're going to Handshake, they're going to whatever venue is out there. Omnia can be that double check. Do I have all of this information on my resume? Have I branded myself in all the things that I wanted to do? And then post UC, we want to track their engagement in the professional world. So whether that's a professional student, whether that's a professional employee, our student athletes, their engagement beyond UC is important to us. We do a lot of programming. We want their support in the programming. We do a Bearcats Go Pro night. Many of the participants are former student athletes working in the local area for those companies, and they come back and participate. So having those profiles, but also if we have current student athletes that we want to connect, I'm looking to be an actuary. Well, what actuaries do we have that are former athletes around the country that we could connect a current student athlete with? Having those profiles, and we can really quickly go into the database and find that dashboard to find where those former student athletes are and connect it with a current student athlete. Those will be a couple of the very quick critical pieces in those focus areas.
Well, we've talked a little bit about how Omnia will change the game for the student athletes. How will it change the workflow and experience for your staff?
They will be able to not work off of 500 different Excel spreadsheets. That's the number one goal right now. Is we have files everywhere, and we have an Excel file for everything. So I know that's the number one thing. And then just the follow up to programming, and when we put on an event, the ability to expedite some of the planning for it, but also the post event planning and surveys and how did we do, and just the engagement of everybody that participates in an activity. We know that a software like this can help us expedite that communication and move on to the next activity and better log the information. And especially, we want it in one place. We have those Excel files, new staff member comes in, you're just trying to find a lot of documentation that can be in a lot of different places.
Are there any other specific pain points that you're hoping to implement Omnia to solve?
I think it's just a matter of streamlining our programming, streamlining the communication. There's opportunities for our student athletes to do more, whether it's mandatory curriculum or it's just more engagement with the Cincinnati community. That's a big part of what we're looking for. Is there's a lot of opportunities, whether it's career engagement, community engagement, leadership. We have a partnership with our College of Business, and what are some of those opportunities? So I think it's capturing all of that communication, and rather seeing it as a pain point, I just think we have these opportunities that we need to capture, and the efficiency of one platform will allow us to jump into that world.
Absolutely. Well, let's turn to Nicole and Grand Canyon. Nicole, what needs did GCU have that you were hoping Omnia could fill?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me here. We're really looking just, again, that centralized location where everything is housed, institutional records, that ability for you to log into one spot, whether you're on the app or you're on a computer, and be able to access everything that we're doing for our student athletes from an academic standpoint, community engagement, and then also for our, not just for our student athletes, but for our staff, our administration, our coaches. What are we doing and what are we putting out there for our student athletes to be involved in? And then we're always trying to teach our student athletes those time management skills, that organizational skill, that ability to prioritize. And having all of this information in one centralized location and having it there far in advance, that it allows these student athletes to take a look at their schedule, take a look at their semester, and really figure out, what can I do? What can I get involved and prioritize my time and utilize so that I participate in these events and make sure that I'm making my personal, my professional development a priority. Of course, they have their athletics, they have their academic requirements and expectations, but we want to make sure that we're really creating a space for them to be a very well-rounded individual So having all of this in a centralized location that's at the palm of their hand really allows them that ability to manage their time so that they don't get up to a date and realize, oh my gosh, I have this, this, and this. How am I going to get it all done? It's on there, and we can be sending out reminders. Tech can really plan accordingly, as well as having the opportunity to sign up for things that they want, which also allows us to know what are their students really interested in and what do they want, so that we can continue to provide them those opportunities.
Well, Grand Canyon is using Omnia a little differently than Cincinnati. Some of the key features that GCU is utilizing include event tracking and attendance, the awards and honors database, and of course, reporting. Can you speak to some of those features and how the GCU student athletes are responding?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had very positive feedback from our student athletes, especially once we implemented the single sign-in. I know, like many people, you don't remember your password, you have it auto-saved. So now this is a one-stop. They log into the university portal. It's a single sign-in. So that alone made it extremely easy for our student athletes to access. The app itself is very user-friendly. But one of the things, I know that paper and pen, we are away from the paper and pen data collecting. So, or do we have internet connection? Do I need to bring my laptop out to an event? Maybe it's off campus, community service. The app really allows us, we utilize it for our check-in. Literally, I have my cell phone out. We have multiple people if you have the app. So our whole staff are there. We're checking people in. It really creates some efficiency even with the check-in process. The student athletes just open up the code, we scan it, and we're able to track that attendance. So at all of our events, that is how they check into the event. Making sure that then it's live. We know exactly who's there. We can report that information out, especially for those events that are mandatory. We instantly have that data, who's here, who are we missing, so that we can be tracking that data. So that has made it extremely efficient, taken away the, do we have internet access? Don't need to have a paper and pen for additional sign-in, just making sure that they have their cell phones, which we know our student athletes always have their cell phones, so that they're ready to go. So really utilizing it from a tracking, and then also just that awards standpoint. I know we're constantly, whether it's the NCAA, institution, conference awards, nominating our student athletes, wanting to make sure that they're getting the recognition that they deserve. But again, creating that space where we can track that information. So as we're going to see who do we want to nominate for awards, we have that institutional data of what have they achieved? Do they qualify for this award? Do they have the community service? We're always looking in 100 different places on 100 different Excel sheets to see, does the student athlete qualify? Where Retain provides us that one-stop shop. You can look at that student's profile and be like, hey, this student meets all of the criteria. They have the community engagement. They're involved in campus. They serve in leadership roles. They've been recognized at the conference, the NCAA level. So really centralizing that and allowing multiple places. It's not just our academic staff. It's just not our student athletes, but it's our communications office. It's our the sport administrators. It's the coaches, that everyone is able to see the student's platform to know what is the best avenue for that student. Who should we go ahead and nominate? And then as we're onboarding new staff members too, for them to be able to log in and kind of see like the profile of that student as well. So we're really excited about utilizing this platform.
It truly sounds like a one-stop shop. Well, how has Omnia impacted productivity thus far for your staff?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in the process right now of kind of revamping our student-athlete development programming, and having Omnia, the programming and the software really allows us to make it really efficient, streamline it, again, have everything in that one-stop spot. But then also just from a staff administration standpoint, that at any point in time, even as far as we're talking about time management for our student athletes and for staff as well, it allows, so say a trainer's logging in and they can take a look and be like, all right, I need to schedule this physical, or I need to schedule a doctor's appointment. They can take a look at that student athlete schedule as well, so that we're also not pulling our student athletes in 100 different directions, that they could log in and see, hey, maybe I'm not going to schedule this doctor's appointment during this event that they have on campus, or a meeting. Or if it does have to, obviously sometimes those situations take place, then they know that they can pick up the phone call and say, hey, So again, it's not pulling these student athletes in different places. We're streamlining our communication. We can utilize it in different platforms, whether we're using surveys to gauge our student athletes in not just from a student athlete development standpoint, but maybe it's strength and conditioning, maybe it's health and wellness. Really being able to have that centralized location for staff, administration, and our student athletes, that they're not logging into multiple platforms. So really that efficiency, and then the record keeping and having that. So as new people are onboarded, they're able to look back and access information, as well as for our alumni. Again, we want to continue to engage our alumni. We want to continue to support our alumni. So having that information, it may not be a student that I directly worked with, that maybe they graduated years ago, but I could log back into their profile, see what they've done, and see how we can continue to engage them, but also continue to assist them and support them as well.
Well, zooming out and thinking about student athlete development more broadly, this is a question for everyone. How can we more effectively measure and evaluate success when it comes to student athlete outcomes? I mean, we have graduation rates, APR, but are there some new ways we can think about student athlete development?
Yeah, I think one of the nice features with Retain is that ability it recognizes who attended that event, and right immediately after, and catching them kind of in that real time, sending them out feedback and engagement. I think it's really important that if we're providing these events, we need to seek the feedback. Was it productive? Is this someone that in the future we would want to bring back to our campus to continue to engage? So I think being able to have that set up in the system where those who attended the event immediately when it's completed are going to get that survey to get follow-up, because we really want to continue to survey our student athletes. Is this programming working? Is this something that they find beneficial? So we can either continue to provide something similar, or for that future generation and class of student athletes, or is it something we need to rethink, and maybe we need to go a different direction. So I think getting that feedback is extremely important.
I'd take what Nicole shared, and I think that's really a critical piece, is the immediate feedback. And then we're looking for, we use the phrase preparing to be a professional. And so I want to know from our individuals that are leaving us, when they're exiting UC, how well they feel prepared to be a professional, but then also engage them 1 to 3 years out to see, once they've actually been in the professional world, what transition has been there for them. And so you have the optics of, I'm leaving campus, where do I sit? But then now I've lived it for a short time, and offer feedback back to our academy staff of what are some of those experiences, and comparing that senior, let's say they're a senior, giving their impression of where they were as a senior, but then as a 1 to 3 year professional, and find those pieces that then we can continue evaluating our curriculum. And so that survey information, those profiles are going to be critical to us.
Kevin, I want to think a little bit bigger here. How can Omnia provide a solution to implementing and tracking things like Alston Awards?
Yeah, and so I can answer that, and then Nicole or Dr. Luckey definitely chime in from your perspective. But what we're hearing is schools are looking at potentially adding additional requirements in order to receive their Alston Awards. And so going back to those pathways, if they have an existing curriculum defined at the department level, those provide those opportunities to add, whether it's event attendance requirements or other programming options, to be included in that. And so that would just fundamentally be able to have that tracked. But at the end of the day, once those get completed, it's going to provide a dashboard to really, with one click, run a report and see exactly who's received the award, who has not. And kind of going back, just echoing what Nicole and Joe had mentioned earlier, just having that single place that multiple staff members can refer back to easily have those insights and make decisions quickly.
Well, last big question for you, Kevin. What is on the horizon for Omnia? We are at the launch today. What is the roadmap for implementation across all of your partners?
Yeah, great question. So we're excited to see obviously in-person activity ramping up to hopefully its full capacity again. So we're definitely going to build out some enhanced capability on the event side. More offsite events typically have certain time slots that you sign up for and capacity limits for certain functions. So really just providing really advanced tooling to organize the smallest to the largest events that a department puts on. And we really thought we had to start with, as we mentioned many times in the call today, just the tracking. So once we're able to start having multiple semesters and years of data tracked, that'll open up opportunities for us to provide additional analytics and insights and reporting, whether our software is providing that or at least allowing the schools to have integrations with their data with campus partners and connect to other information throughout campus. So those are kind of the two big areas for us. And ultimately having all that information and all that tracked, most likely, we're going to implement kind of a curated job board to help streamline opportunities for the athletes, especially now that departments will have a single place. They'll know exactly which interests the athletes have. They already do have the academic data in terms of what colleges and majors their athletes are belonging to. So again, really being able to disseminate that information as quickly as possible to their athletes is where we're going to spend a lot of our time.
Well, one of my favorite questions to ask folks in student-athlete development is, what is the secret sauce to providing that world-class experience? And it certainly sounds like Omnia is a key platform and technology solution that will help departments across the country provide that world-class experience. Kevin with Retain, Nicole with GCU, and Joe with Cincinnati, thank you all so much for joining us and for giving us this tremendous insight. We are so excited to follow along with the launch of Omnia and to see how your departments and your student athletes utilize this one-stop shop.